of the shares after the mergers that they're doing quite good. They did well manage those mergers. They did well manage the combination of different cultures. They did manage the combination of the very different challenges they face abroad. So they are very good examples of successful companies having gained a lot of experience in overseas market and using mergers and acquisitions as a strategic entry point into overseas markets, and especially European markets. Now, how do they do that? What is the transaction background? HNA has a very clear and a very outspoken strategy to speed up. On the one side, they want to move very fast because they're in the airline business and they are phasing up, of course, against other competitors from China. So they need, as quick as possible, speed up internationalization. Because they know the biggest challenge comes, of course, from their own competitors in China. And they will pick up. On the other side, they look at industrial chain integration. So they are very clear about integrating the whole process of different products and different services so that they can not be just dependent on one traditional line of business, but they have a broad spectrum, which gives them safety, which gives them more flexibility, which gives them a broader customer base, and which will secure that they face easier up against other competitors which might come from the aviation sector. So it's a very good, very smart approach. Looking at NH Hotels, here again, we have the same situation many companies face when we look at challenges and developments on a global basis that heavily affect, in a negative sense, business. And we see, as a hotel, as a tourism industry looking at Europe, looking at the European tourism market, it was heavily affected by the European financial crisis. So again, NH Hotel Group very heavily felt the impact of the European financial crisis on its business performance. It did prove again, but this shows again the differences between the background and the strategy of a company like HNA Group and a company like NH Group. It's a different approach. The backing is different. The history where they come from is different. Sometimes even though we say, well, this is a state-owned enterprise and this is a private enterprise, but we have to go back further. We have to understand where did they come from? What is their background? What is their going back 20, 30 years? Where did they come from? Are they just some private startups, or do they have another background coming from somewhere? And this also defines how in times of crisis and in times of problems they can manage with those challenges, like being hit by a financial crisis or a slump in oil prices. What backing do you have? What is your security? And this defines the challenges you have and how you survive or how you manage. Now, coming to the next point of following the main strategy when looking at mergers and acquisitions, with regards to entering into the local markets. Entering into the local markets, I have chosen the first example being Lenovo. Lenovo currently is the world's biggest computer producer. So being in the sector of personal computers. the biggest one. They have been established in 1984 during the times of slowly taking off in China, mid of 80s. They have acquired quite a lot of international business. They have followed the path that getting known as a Chinese brand and building up your branding images and getting further into the markets and really penetrating foreign markets. As a Chinese computer producer, you need to have some big brand helping you developing that image. So Lenovo, when they purchased the PC brand from IBM, for them it was a big challenge at the beginning. I remember after they took over, they faced immense problems. They faced huge problems. They faced huge management problems. They did that quite a couple of years ago when the Chinese market and Chinese companies were not so much ready for internationalization, when there was still a lot of mistrust from foreign companies, foreign countries, and foreign consumers with regards to Chinese products. IBM was a very renowned brand. Many people didn't want to give away that brand. They didn't want to give away that brand to a Chinese company because that time, if you looked at China, there was no Chinese computer being known on an international basis. So everybody thought, wait a minute, why do Chinese, who is that Chinese company? How can they just purchase that well-known brand? It's our brand, it's a Western brand, it's Western history, it's Western pride. How can they do that? It's not good. And then they said, well, you will see, after they take over that brand, quality will be just going down. So there was no trust. So Lenovo had huge problems at the very beginning to phase up those wrong understandings. Because they said, wait a minute, we are a serious company, we have a lot of experience, we are producing great quality, but you don't know us. So you don't trust us. And they didn't trust them, of course. So at the beginning, Lenovo, of course, they needed to go with their products into foreign markets, but there was no market for Chinese computers. Nobody wanted to have a Chinese computer. Because there was enough computers on the market and they were very good established brands. So the only way for Lenovo to get with their products into the market was by stepping onto the shoulders of a giant like IBM and purchasing that. So they got to that part and found very, very strong opposition from everywhere, from the customers, from the partners, from economic circles, because they were a Chinese company. So it took them quite a while, on the one side, to convince people that they are serious, that they want to globalize, that they don't just want to destroy the brand of IBM, but want to further develop it, and they want to bring up the same quality as people have been used to with regards to IBM. So it was a very difficult fight and a very complicated matter. So the challenge is, Lenovo faced up when they merged, when they took that merger with IBM. They've been tremendous, but they managed. So Lenovo learned a lot. So Lenovo learned, if your strategy is getting into the market, and you do that by merger and acquisition, linking up with something that is well established, it's a very tough one. It's a very tough fight.